Beetlejuice, the ghost of the most. JAYLA'S Halloween story. Beetlejuice, the ghost with the most. The tale of the bioexorcist. In the folds between breath and burial, where time forgets its name and gravity curls inward like a dying leaf, there lies a place not meant to be seen, the Netherlands. It is not a world, it is a bruise between worlds, a place stitched from the sighs of the lost and the laughter of things that should not laugh. The sky there is not sky, it is a ceiling of ash and memory, pulsing with the heartbeat of forgotten gods. The ground, it breathes, it shifts, sometimes it weeps, and if you ever, by accident or ache, peek too long into the wrong mirror, or whisper a name 3 times too many, you might see it, a flicker, a shimmer, a neighborhood, not the kind with picket fences and porch lights. No, these homes are grown, not built, twisting cottages of bone and vine, windows that blink, doors that sigh when opened. The streets are paved in beetle shells and broken promises. Lanterns hang from skeletal trees, glowing with the souls of moths too curious to stay dead. And yet, there is laughter. Children with teeth too sharp and hearts too soft chase each other through the fog. Monsters sip tea brewed from thunder clouds. There is love here, strange and stubborn. There is grief, too, thick as the mist, clinging to every corner. The Netherlands do not welcome, they remember, and if you find yourself there, uninvited, do not knock, do not speak, do not stare too long at the house with a green mist curling from its chimney and the laughter that sounds like wind through hollow bones, because that is where the ghost lives, the one they call the ghost with the most, and he remembers everything, even you, in the Netherworld's swirling chaos, where forgotten echoes wailed and striped beetles skittered through luminous fog. A love-defying realms took root. Miriam, a whirlwind of untamed fury cloaked in emerald mists, anchored herself to Henry, a towering, gentle monster whose quiet strength silenced storms. His heart, vast and forgiving, cradled her wildness. In his eyes, she found peace she'd never dreamed. Their son, Beetlejuice, a pale wisp with eyes swirling like his mother's hidden chaos, called him Pops, a tender human word that softened their monstrous world. Flashback 1. The first giggles, 10 months old, in a dimly lit Netherworld nursery alive with floating orbs that pulsed like distant stars, Henry scooped up baby Beetlejuice, barely 10 months, all chubby cheeks and tiny striped onesie, from his crib of woven shadows. The infant's wild eyes sparkled with curiosity as Henry bounced him gently, mimicking the skittering beetles outside their window. "Who's my little chaos king?" Henry rumbled softly, his massive frame careful as a whisper. Beetlejuice let out his first true giggle, a sound like tinkling bells cutting through the fog. Overwhelmed with joy, Henry dramatically toppled backward onto their vast, moss-covered bed, pulling his son snug against his chest. They lay there, Beetlejuice's tiny hand clutching Henry, both dissolving into laughter as the orbs swirled above like a private aurora, a perfect bubble of warmth amid the Netherworld's endless whirl. The shattering of Henry, a monster's death by grief. The day they crossed into the human world, the air felt wrong, not poisoned, just too still. Henry noticed it first. He stood at the edge of the village, his massive hand wrapped around Beetlejuice's tiny one, and whispered to Miriam, "It's too quiet. They know we're here." Miriam, swirling in green mist, tried to smile. "They'll see we're family, that we mean no harm." Henry didn't answer. He just knelt beside Beetlejuice, brushing a beetle toy from the boy's tangled hair. "Pops," Beetlejuice whispered, "do humans have beetles like mine?" Henry smiled faintly. "Not like yours, Bug. Yours glow. Theirs just crawl." Beetlejuice giggled. "Then I'll teach them how to glow." Henry's smile faltered. "You might have to teach them how to see." You said they'd welcome us," Miriam murmured to the maid they hired days ago. Elisa turned, her face pale. "I said they might. I hoped they would." Henry entered, ducking beneath the low beams. They stared today, not with curiosity, with fear. Elisa stepped forward. "You're gentle, Henry. They'll learn." Henry's voice was low, tired. "They don't want to learn. They want to forget we exist." Miriam touched his arm. "We'll stay for Beetlejuice. Just a little longer." Henry looked at her, eyes heavy. "I'm trying, Miriam, but I feel myself unraveling." The next morning, the villagers gathered, quiet at first, then louder, stones in hand. Words like poison, monster, someone hissed. Abomination, another spat. Henry stepped in front of Miriam and Beetlejuice, arms wide. "We mean no harm." A stone struck his shoulder. He didn't flinch. Beetlejuice screamed, clutching his father's coat. "Pops, make them stop. Make them go away." Henry knelt, voice cracking. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But his form flickered. The hate gnawed at him, not his body, but his essence. Suddenly, Miriam erupted, a tempest of green mist and fury. She stood before the mob, eyes blazing. "Leave us," she roared. "You monsters! You filth!" The villagers recoiled, but Henry collapsed. Miriam caught him, cradling his fading form. "Henry, no. What's happening?" Henry's voice was a dry whisper. "It's not their stones. It's their hearts. I can't breathe in a world that hates what it doesn't understand." Miriam sobbed, mist trembling. "We can go back. We can go home." Henry's eyes found Beetlejuice, cowering behind him. "Protect him. He is innocent." "He is innocent," Miriam cried. He was us." Henry shimmered. "Miriam, I love you." And then he was gone. Miriam screamed. It was not a sound. It was a rupture, a howl that split the sky. The villagers fled, terrified not of her power, but of her grief. Beetlejuice was knocked to the ground. He reached out, but no hand met his. The world blurred. His mother's scream was swallowed by noise. He was alone. And in that moment, something broke. The day the name was forgotten. The day Beetlejuice's memory vanished. The world did not mourn. It held its breath. Not a peaceful breath, but the kind that comes after a bell has shattered glass, after a scream has ruptured sky. The kind of silence that feels like drowning. 5-year-old Beetlejuice clung to the tattered edges of his father's coat, the black and white stripes a blur against his tear-streaked face. His small hands, still sticky from a treat Miriam had conjured from mist and honey root, traced the pattern like it was scripture, like it could bring Henry back. But the memory of Henry's voice, a gentle rumble, like thunder wrapped in velvet, was still there. Not clear, not whole, just a buzzing static behind his teeth, a phantom vibration in his bones. He cried out, high and desperate, "Pops, Pops, wake up. You said you'd never leave." No answer, just the wind, just the hush. From the crowd, silent, horrified, human, a woman stepped forward. Her face was not monstrous. It was kind, framed by her the color of firelight. Her name was Rita, though Beetlejuice wouldn't remember that either. She knelt before him, her voice a steady current in the chaos. "Look at me, sweet boy. Just look at me." Beetlejuice blinked, eyes wide and wild. He's gone and I don't know why." Rita's voice didn't waver. "Breathe with me. Just breathe." "I can't," he sobbed. "I don't know how without him." "Yes, you do," she whispered. "You're still here. That means you can." They breathed together. In, out, in, out. The world's static dissolved into the rhythm of two hearts trying not to break. And then it happened. A flicker, a surge, a protective instinct buried deep in Beetlejuice's soul, born of monster blood and mist, reached out. It wrapped around the memory like a cocoon, and with a soft, invisible click, the memory of Henry's face, his name, his laugh, vanished, not erased, buried. The pain remained, like a phantom ache in a missing limb. Rita saw it happen. She saw the light dim. She didn't speak. She simply gathered him in her arms. "You're safe now," she said. "You're home." Beetlejuice didn't answer. He didn't know what home meant anymore. Later that night, Rita's home smelled of baking bread and warm laundry. It was quiet, but not the terrifying kind. Just soft. Just still. She bathed him gently, her hands careful and kind. "Do you remember your name?" she asked. Beetlejuice looked up, eyes blank. "I think it was something funny, something strippy." Rita smiled, though her heart ached. "Then we'll call you Elias, until you remember." "I like that," he said. She laughed. "It sounds like magic." He nodded. "I think I was magic once." "You still are," she whispered. In the quiet hours, Beetlejuice sat by the window, watching the stars. Rita joined him, a blanket wrapped around them both. "Do you remember anything?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just mist, and a voice, and a coat." "Was the voice kind?" He nodded. "It said I was brave, that I was magic." "You are," she said again. "You always will be." Beetlejuice leaned into her. "Will he come back?" Rita didn't lie. "Not like before, but maybe, in dreams, in echoes." Beetlejuice closed his eyes. "Then I'll listen really hard." The boy who forgot, the name that lingered. The day Rita took him home, the world was still humming with the echo of Miriam's scream. Beetlejuice, 5 years old, pale and trembling, clung to the tattered coat that no longer held a body. The stripes blurred against his tear-streaked face, his fingers sticky from a treat he couldn't name anymore. Rita knelt beside him, her voice steady in the chaos. "Come with me, sweetheart. You're safe now." He didn't answer, just stared at the ground where Henry had vanished. She reached out, slowly. "I'll feed you. I'll keep you warm. You don't have to speak. Just breathe." He nodded once. That was all she needed. Her home was quiet, warm. The scent of baking bread and lavender soap filled the air. She bathed him gently, her hands careful not to startle. "You're safe," she whispered, rinsing his hair. "You're home." He blinked. "What's home?" She paused. "It's where someone loves you." He looked down. "Then I guess this is home." That night, his powers surged, not in rage, but in protection. A flicker of green light curled around his mind, sealing away the unbearable truth. The memory of Henry, his voice, his laugh, his name, vanished, but the ache remained. Like a phantom limb, Rita named him Elias. A soft name, a shield. But he was never soft. Years later, school trouble. Elias was a storm in a child's body. He spoke of monsters and mists, of striped coats and beetles that glowed. Teachers called Rita often. "He's disruptive," they said. "He talks about things that scare the other children." Rita defended him. "He's imaginative. He summons something," one teacher whispered once. "It looked like a worm." It grinned. Rita held Elias close that night. "You're not bad," she said. "You're just more." He frowned. "I think I had a date once. He told me I was magic." Rita's heart cracked. "You are, and maybe you did, but you're mine now." The social worker visit. The social worker, Mr. Halberd, had been seeing Elias for years. He sat across from him now, in Rita's living room, notebook open. "You've been drawing these symbols again," he said. "Can you tell me what they mean?" Elias, now 15, shrugged. "They're maps to the netherworld." Halberd raised an eyebrow. "You believe it's real?" Elias leaned forward. "I don't believe, I remember. I just don't know how." Rita entered, wiping her hands on a towel. "He's exceptional," she said. "His powers come from beauty and strength." Halberd nodded slowly. "And danger." Rita's eyes narrowed. "Only to those who fear what they don't understand." Age 30, the flyer. Elias, no, Beetlejuice, was 30 when he found it. A crumpled flyer in a dusty shop window. Bioexorcist for hire. He stared at it for a long time. Something in his chest thudded. A memory, maybe, or a promise. He took it home. Rita watched him from the doorway. "You've been glowing again," she said softly. "Your room smells like thunder." He turned. "I think I'm close." To what? To him. Rita stepped inside, brushing a thorn from his shoulder. "Your powers come from love, Beetlejuice. But love hurts. Are you ready for that?" He nodded. "I've been hurting my whole life." She kissed his forehead. "Then go find him. But don't lose yourself." The therapist's office. Beetlejuice sat across from Dr. Vance, eyes distant. A sandworm grinned behind him, flickering in and out of view. "I remember Green," he said. And a voice. And a promise. Dr. Vance snapped his fingers. "Stay with me." Beetlejuice blinked. "I'm trying." "Where were you just now?" He looked down. "Home, but not this one." Dr. Vance leaned in. "Do you think he's still out there?" Beetlejuice's voice cracked. "I hope so. I need him to tell me who I was." The day Rita died, the air in Rita's room was thick with the scent of lavender and the metallic whisper of dying. Beetlejuice, who the world called Elias, held her hand as if he could physically tether her to the earth. His massive, often clumsy hands were impossibly gentle, his thumb tracing slow circles over her knuckles. He was a creature of chaos trying to be still, for her. "The pain is a fog today, Eli," Rita whispered, her voice a dry leaf. "Can't see through it." "I'm here, Ma," he murmured, his own voice tight. "I'm right here. Look at me. Just keep looking at me. I'll keep the fog back." He could feel it, the otherness inside him, a roiling, brilliant storm. It was the gift, the curse. For years, Rita had been its stem. "It's a part of you, Eli," she'd say, wiping his tears after he'd accidentally made the garden statues weep blood. "It comes from your big, messy heart." I would never fear it. He'd believed her. He'd tried to believe her. But now, as she slipped away, the dam was cracking. The more terrified he became of losing her, the more the power swelled, chaotic and unpredictable. A vase of get-well flowers on the windowsill suddenly grew thorns and wept a black, syrupy sap. He flinched, pulling his energy back, forcing it down. "Control. You have to control it. Your hands are shaking, sweetheart," Rita said, her eyes clouded with morphine but still seeing him. "I'm okay," he lied, his smile a fragile thing. "Just thinking." He was thinking about his father, a ghost of a memory, a feeling of safety. His entire life, his one constant dream, had been to find him. He would give up the dream, shatter it himself, if it meant buying her one more lucid moment. The door opened. Dr. Albright entered. "Elias, you need to let us work." "No," Beetlejuice said, his voice low but firm. He didn't move. "Elias, now is not the time." I said no. The air in the room chilled several degrees. The lights flickered. Beetlejuice's eyes widened in panic. "No, no, no, not now." He took a sharp breath, pulling the energy back in. It was like holding back a tsunami. Rita's breath hitched. She wasn't looking at the doctor. She was looking at him. And for the first time, he saw it in her eyes. Not fear of him. Never of him. It was a flicker of fear of his gift. The gift she had sworn she would never fear. She was slipping away from him, and the primal part of her was recoiling from the unnatural chill. It was the most heart-shattering thing he had ever seen. "It's okay, Ma," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I've got it. See? It's warm." He focused, pouring every ounce of his will into generating a harmless, warm glow from his fingertips. A pathetic, safe trick. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy. She was fading into the fog. "No, no, no. Stay with me, please." He couldn't hold back any more. Not the power, But the love, it was all he had left. He let go of her hand and instead leaned over her, folding himself onto the bed, pressing his face into the hollow of her shoulder. His body was racked with tremors. "Please, Rita. Mom. Don't go. You can't go," he sobbed, the words muffled against her hospital gown. "I'm here. Your Eli is right here. Feel me? I'm pouring all of me into you. All the love. Every bit. Just take it. Use it. Let it be an anchor." He was trying to physically pour his soul into hers, to fill her fading form with the sheer, blinding intensity of his devotion. His tears soaked through the thin fabric, hot and endless. He cried like the child she had found, lost, terrified, and utterly helpless. "I'll be so good. I'll never use my powers again. I'll be normal. I'll be anything you want. Just please, please, stay awake. Stay with me. Look at me." He was begging the universe, bargaining with God, offering up his very identity as a sacrifice. He was a god of chaos offering to become a mortal man. If only it would save his mother. Her chest rose and fell in a shallow, slow rhythm beneath his cheek. He could feel the faint, faltering beat of her heart. He clung to it, sobbing, pouring every memory, every laugh, every quiet moment of her reading to him, into that fragile connection. He was a conduit of pure, undiluted love, and it was the most powerful, most useless magic he had ever performed. Dr. Albright's hand landed on his shoulder, pulling him back. "She's gone, son. Let her be. She's not gone," he roared, the sound torn from the depths of him. But he was weak from the effort, from the grief. He was dragged away, his fingers scrambling for one last touch of her hand. The door slammed. The lock clicked. He collapsed against it, his body folding in on itself. The hallway was silent except for his broken, ragged sobs. He had given her everything, his love, his dreams, his promise to be good. He had poured the entire ocean of his heart into her, and it had not been enough to keep her ship from sinking. He was just a man, a broken, terrified man, sobbing in a hospital hallway. The storm within him was silent now, cowed by a grief so vast it had no need for spectacle. He had finally broken, and this time, there was no one left to piece it back together. The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway did not just hum, they cowered. Beetlejuice, a name that was always more true than Elias, was on his knees, but no longer praying. The door to Rita's room was not just wood, it was the final, insulting barrier between him and the only love that had ever tethered him to this fragile, dying world. The doctors had tried to remove him after visiting hours ended. They had spoken of rules and rest, their words as meaningless as dust. He had let them guide him, a hollowed-out shell. Now, he was back, and the shell was cracking. A whisper, raw and guttural, seeped from his lips, not into the air, but into the very fabric of the building. Beetlejuice. It was not a name. It was a diagnosis, a declaration of species. A nurse shied away, thinking, madman, grief. She was wrong. This was not madness. This was a fundamental realignment. He was remembering what he was, the storm's awake. He mumbled, his head tilting as he listened to a sound only he could hear, the rising wind of his own essence. The air grew thick, pressurized, the scent of lavender from a cleaning cart mutated, twisting into the smell of ozone and damp, forgotten earth. They can't unsee you. Now, he was right. The performance of humanity was over. The kind, scared boy named Elias was a costume, and Rita had been the only audience who believed it. Now, the curtain was closing. He rose. His joints did not crack like a man's. They unfolded like the legs of a great, awakening insect. His shadow on the wall did not follow his form. It writhed, stretching into jagged, impossible shapes. And then came the core truth, the one that fixed everything. His voice was no longer a whisper, but the dry, rustling of a billion beetle shells, comma, the netherworld's in me. This was the correction. The netherworld was not a place he was from. It was not a homeland. He was born from it. He was a piece of that bruise between worlds given consciousness, a walking, talking fragment of its sighing lost things and its cruel, laughing monsters. He had tried to be a man. He had tried to love like a man. He realized now it was all a pathetic pantomime. Love, the force he thought was his anchor, was a human illusion. It could not bring back Rita. It had not saved his father. Hope was the poison they fed you to make the fall harder. It had crushed him, as it was designed to do. The thunder of security boots echoed. You. Step away from the door. The scared man was gone. The performance was over. The Prince of Netherland turned. The first guard lunged. Beetlejuice did not gesture. The air itself, loyal to its prince, solidified into a wall of force. The man hit it and crumpled. The second guard charged. Beetlejuice blinked. The linoleum floor beneath the man's feet became a patch of the breathing grounds of his homeland, soft and grasping. It swallowed his feet to the ankles, holding him fast. There was no anger on Beetlejuice's face. There was a terrifying, placid acceptance. He was not using his powers. He was allowing himself to be what he always was, the bioexorcist, the ghost with a most, a natural force, like a earthquake or a plague. The lights above did not just explode. They dissolved into swirling motes of green phosphorescence. The hallway was plunged into the shifting, sickly glow of the netherworld's false sky. The walls peeled back, revealing not drywall and insulation, but pulsating, veined rock and the echoes of screams from lost souls. He stood at the epicenter, his form flickering between the man he tried to be and the entity he was born as. His voice, when it came, was the sound of 1,000 doors to forgotten rooms slamming shut at once. You thought you were treating a patient, the voice rasped, a grin stretching his face into painful, skeletal rictus. This ain't a hospital anymore, docs, it's a haunting, and you've all got front row seats. The incident at the hospital didn't just make the news, it seeped into the foundations of the town, a ghost story told over fences and in quiet pubs. In the neighborhood, as the local diner was called, the chatter was relentless. Did you hear? They'd whisper, clutching their coffee mugs. That Elias Johnson, cracked clean through, says he's some kind of ghost, calls himself Beetlejuice. Grief does strange things to a man. One would nod sagely. Strange. Another would scoff. He nearly brought the roof down on the ICU. That's not grief. That's possession. He was touched by something from the other side. A gift, or a curse, from the gods of the afterlife. Most wrote him off as a crazed man, a dangerous spectacle, but not everyone. A woman named Elizabeth, new to town and possessing a quiet intensity that masked her own loneliness, listened to the stories not with fear, but with a sharp, analytical curiosity. She didn't see a monster. She saw a mathematical anomaly, a man whose emotional variables had produced a power she couldn't quantify. She saw a lost, fascinating equation to be solved. She found him not in the shadows of a graveyard, but in the geometric silence of a sea cave, sitting on a cold rock, staring at the tide as if it might hold an answer. He was curled into himself, his green hair limp, the iconic stripes of his jacket looking like a uniform. He no longer had the energy to wear. "You're the one they talk about," she said, her voice calm, without a trace of judgment. "The one with a gift." He didn't look at her. "It's not a gift. Everything is a gift if you know how to use it," Elizabeth replied, stepping closer. "Or who to use it for." That was the beginning. She was patient. She asked questions not about his powers, but about his pain. She brought him food, sat with him in silence, and slowly, carefully, picked the lock on his heart. He was slow to trust, a wounded animal flinching from a kind hand, but he was so terribly lonely. In her dark eyes and steady presence, he saw a reflection of Rita's strength. In her interest, he saw a chance to reclaim the dream of being loved. He began to hope. Maybe he didn't have to be the Prince of Netherworld or the bioexorcist. Maybe he could just be Elias. Maybe he could just be his. They dated. They walked together through the autumn woods. For the first time in a long time, he laughed. A real, unforced sound that startled even him. He smiled, the tension easing from his shoulders as he wrapped an arm around her, feeling the solid warmth of another person. He was letting himself be happy. One evening, under a canopy of stars, he showed her his power, not the terrifying, bone-deep magic of the hospital, but the magic of his birthright. He made luminous, jewel-winged beetles dance in the air between them. He conjured tiny, silent fireworks of soft green light. He was showing her the beautiful, strange core of himself, the part he'd always hidden for fear it would be seen as monstrous. He was being vulnerable, soft, almost human. He was offering her the most fragile part of his soul, wondering if, this time, it would be safe. One night, exhausted by the novel and terrifying act of trusting, he fell into deep sleep in her apartment. He slept on his side, facing the wall, his body curled, defenseless. The stripes of his suit were discarded on a chair. He was just a man in a t-shirt and trousers, his green hair messy against the pillow. In the dim light, he looked young, and all the ancient pain was smoothed from his face. It was then, in the profound quiet of the night, that Elizabeth did something that cut deeper than any knife. She did not steal from him. She did not hurt him physically. From her bag, she retrieved a notepad, a voice recorder, and a camera. She moved with a clinical, precise efficiency. She took close-up photographs of his sleeping form, documenting the faint, ethereal glow his skin sometimes emitted in repose. She carefully recorded the soft, sub-audible whispers in a language that wasn't of this world that slipped from his lips as he dreamed. Then, she reached out and, with a pair of tweezers, plucked a single, green hair from his head. Beetlejuice stirred, a faint murmur of discomfort escaping him, but he did not wake. Elizabeth placed the hair in a sterile plastic bag, labeled it with time and date, and packed her things. She looked at him one last time, her expression not one of love or guilt, but of cold, triumphant satisfaction. She had the final data point. The equation was complete. She had not come to love him. She had come to study him. And now her research was done. The betrayal was not a hot, sharp pain. It was the slow, chilling realization that would dawn on him when he woke to an empty apartment, finding the evidence of her clinical dissection of his heart. She hadn't stolen his love. She had rendered it a specimen, proof that he could never be loved for what he was, only exploited for what he could do. The hope that had begun to heal him was not just broken, it had been alive from the very beginning, and that cut deeper than any blade. The sliver of sunlight cutting through the dusty apartment window felt like a mockery. Beetlejuice woke slowly. The deep, trusting sleep Elizabeth had coaxed him into now feeling like a poison. He stretched, a faint, unguarded smile touching his lips as he reached for her side of the bed. It was cold, empty. A prickle of unease, cold and familiar, traced its way down his spine. Then he heard it, not the quiet hum of a morning, but a low, gathering roar from outside. A crowd. Thousands of voices, chanting, angry, confused. He stumbled to the window and peeled back the curtain. The street below was a sea of people. They held signs painted with harsh, slashing letters. Banish the demon. Beware the bioexorcist. Protect our reality. And at the center of it all, standing on a makeshift platform with a microphone, was Elizabeth. Her face, which he had seen soft with what he thought was affection, was now a mask of grave concern. And I lived with him, her amplified voice echoed, clear and sharp as broken glass. I saw the chaos that lives inside him. It's not a gift, people. It's a contagion. He speaks of an ether world he wants to merge with our own. He told me he would tear down the walls between life and death, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. He is not a man to be pitied, he is a threat to be contained. A cautionary warning. Every word was a meticulously placed dagger, twisting the vulnerable truths he had shared into a narrative of monstrous intent. His confession about wanting to find a cure for Rita, to somehow use his powers to restore her life force, became a desire to merge worlds. His grief over his lost father became a reckless ambition to tear down walls. The love he had poured into her, the same love he had once poured into Rita, the same love he had desperately aimed at finding a way to save his father, was gone. Not just rejected, but weaponized, used as the very fuel for his own crucifixion. He stood there, at the window, naked in his heartbreak. The pain was so vast, so absolute, it was silent. It didn't feel like a shatter, it felt like an evaporation. The last of his soft, human core simply dissolved into the ether. The tears that had come so readily for Rita, the sobs that had racked him in the hospital hallway, they simply stopped. The well was dry. The generous, loving heart that had defined him, even in his monstrosity, was finally, completely, broken. A strange, cold calm settled over him. The chaos within him, which had always been a tempest of raw emotion, suddenly stilled, crystallizing into something far more dangerous: calculation. He let the curtain fall back. He didn't rage. He didn't scream. He walked to the chair and slowly, deliberately, put on his suit. The striped jacket was no longer a costume, it was armor. Each thread was woven with a memory of betrayal. He smoothed down his messy green hair, his movements precise, almost mechanical. The showman's facade, which he had once used to cover a deep well of loneliness, was now all that was left. But it was no longer a facade. It had become his true face. The pain wasn't buried, it was refined, converted into a new, more efficient energy. He was done being the victim of his own heart. He stepped out onto the balcony, the roar of the crowd surging at the side of him. They expected a monster. They expected a raging, heartbroken beast. They did not expect the being who looked down upon them. His expression was not one of anger, but of cold, detached amusement. A slow, wide grin stretched across his face, but it never reached his eyes, which were as flat and dead as a shark's. Well, his voice boomed, amplified by his own power, effortlessly drowning out a mob. It was smooth, slick as oil, and utterly devoid of any genuine feeling. Look at the turnout. You'd think there was a sale on pitchforks and torches. He leaned on the railing, a meticulous performer assessing his audience. Lizzie Baby gave you quite the show, didn't she? A real horror story. But she left out the best part. He paused, letting the anticipation build. The part where I give you one. You wanted a monster? You wanted a bioexorcist. He snapped his fingers. The sky above the crowd darkened to a bruised purple. The air grew cold. But it wasn't a wild, emotional storm. It was controlled, choreographed, a calculated display of terror. You don't have to rally, folks. You're already haunted by your own fear, and business is about to be booming. He laughed, a sound that was all performance, all showmanship, designed to mock and intimidate. Inside, there was nothing. No pain, no sadness, just a vast, silent, calculating void. Beetlejuice, the scared, soft-hearted man, was gone. In his place stood the Prince of Netherworld, not a chaotic force of nature, but a cold, meticulous architect of fear. And he was just getting started. The showman's grin was a perfect, practiced construct, every tooth in its place. It held until the balcony door clicked shut.